Hello, I'm James, and welcome to a Jonesing for Film franchise review. So because the fourth film in the Underworld series was released last week, I have decided that this week I will review the previous three installments. So we will start with 2003's Underworld. So Underworld stars Kate Beckinsale as Celine, a vampire who is a part of a 1,000-year war against Lycans, aka werewolves. After saving a human from the Lycans, she begins to fall down a rabbit hole full of betrayals, secrets, and revelations. That's really all I can say without spoiling anything. Now, I am a fan of most things vampire. I think when done right, vampires can make for very entertaining films. Typically, vampire films get pretty corny and cheesy and are never really taken seriously, though. Underworld is actually very serious and done very well. For starters, the story is actually very entertaining, and after all is revealed, you don't feel cheated or let down. And the story itself is actually kind of deep. I mean, it's not just, we're vampires and we hate you Lycans because you're different, so we're gonna kill you. There's actually a coherent explanation. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of surprised by it. Also, the film is R-rated and therefore pretty violent, but the blood and gore level never goes too over the top, so the serious tone is constant throughout. And speaking of violence, the action is very intense and entertaining. Scenes are shot well and well choreographed. And I love the look of this film. The color tone really adds to every scene, and the cinematography is also really good. And the creature designs are very creative, and the costume designs are very cool. But the movie is far from perfect. The acting, for the most part, is just okay. Nothing really astounding about it, aside from Bill Nighy, who, to me, always gives entertaining performances. Also, the movie kind of drags a bit, but that could be because I watched the extended cut. The theatrical cut may be paced a little better, but I'm not sure. And my final gripe is that the CGI is a little dated, but there isn't a whole lot of it, so it's not a huge problem. So overall, Underworld is a pretty entertaining film. I give it an excellent. If you are a fan of either vampires or werewolves, I recommend you check it out. Now we move on to 2006's Underworld Evolution. The film picks up right where the first one left off, with Celine on the run for events that happened at the end of the first movie, all while learning about the history of vampires and Lycans, and trying to prevent a powerful enemy from being released. Now, I had fun watching this movie. Not as much fun as I did watching the first one, but I still did have a good time. The story is one of the best I've seen for a sequel. New details are added to the existing storyline while still managing to be a story of its own. And everything that I enjoyed about the first film, I enjoyed here. The tone is still serious despite the blood and gore level being elevated. The creature designs are still creative. The action is again very exciting, especially the opening scene. The cinematography is once again very good. And the pacing is much better here. Nothing seemed to drag in this film. However, this film does not surpass the first, where I have a few more gripes. The acting is the same level as before, so that didn't really bother me, but it didn't impress me either. The CGI in this has been upped, and at times can be kinda distracting, mainly with the blood. Most of the blood has been done with CGI to elevate it to the next level, and while it doesn't steal the tone of the film, it doesn't quite reach the seriousness that the first film had. But overall, Underworld Evolution is one of the better sequels I've seen, especially for its genre. I give it my new rating of great. Better than good, but not quite excellent. Finally, we come to 2009's Underworld Rise of the Lycans, which serves as a prequel and gives more detail into the backstory from the first film about how the war between Lycans and vampires began. So what did I think of this film? Well, the story is done very nicely, keeping continuity between it and the first film. And once again, the action is very cool, with the blood level bumped up from the first, but not quite the same level as the second. The CGI is about the same level as the sequel, not enough to ruin the seriousness, but enough to be distracting at times. Bill Nighy gives an entertaining performance as usual, and Michael Sheen is a badass in this. I suppose my biggest problem with this movie is, was it really necessary to make it? I mean, we don't really learn anything new compared to the backstory given in the first film. So if you've seen the first film, then you can kind of guess what's going to happen here. But I can't suggest seeing this before watching the first, because then it takes away from part of the experience of the first film. So I would say that if you're not too fond of the other two films, you're not missing much by skipping this one. But if you're a diehard fan of the others, I'd say you'd probably enjoy this one. So my final verdict on this film, for me, would have to be a good. It doesn't really add anything new to the whole Underworld lore, but it was entertaining at least. So that is my take on the Underworld franchise. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to visit me on Facebook and check out my blog. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next review.